Okay, so we've looked at ratios and rates, and ratios compare two things that are in the same units, whereas rates compare two different units. Now we're going to look at proportions, and proportions are, it basically just states that two ratios or two rates are equal. So, for example, if you have something, this ratio here, it says 5 to 7 equals 15 to 21, that's a proportion, and you can read that 5 is to 7 as 15 is to 21. Or it could be in fractional form as a proportion, and we could read this as 13 is to 9 as 26 is to 18. Okay, so when one number of the proportion, when we have proportions and one of them is unknown, we can use something called cross products to find the unknown number. And you keep in mind you are permitted to use a calculator with these questions. Okay, so if we look at the procedure, this probably won't make sense until we actually do it. But what you're going to do is find the cross products of, what that means is you're going to, cross products means you're multiplying a cross on a diagonal across the equal sign and up to the other side. Okay? So what you're going to do, I'm going to rewrite it over here. Say we had x over 12 equals 7 over 3. So in this case, what it could be saying is there are $7 for every 3 pounds of meat. Okay, how much if you have 12 pounds of meat, because pounds are on the bottom? Then how much would that cost you? How many dollars would that be? Okay, so to do cross products, what you do is you multiply up and across. So 12 times 7, and when we multiply, we just sometimes put in brackets that what this means is 12 times 7. And then you also multiply this way, 3 times x. And when we multiply a number and a letter, you just put them together. So 3 times x is just 3x. So now, 12 times 7, if we look at this side, we rewrite the equal sign. 12 times 7 is 84. And then we still have 3x over here. Now, the last step is we need to divide. So we divide by whatever is attached to x. Okay? So when you cross multiply, you're going to eventually be dividing by that number. So 3 is attached to x, so we're going to divide by 3, but we have to divide both sides by 3. Okay? And then what happens is 3 divided by 3 is just 1. So, and we don't write 1x because 1 times x is just x. So we just get, we get x equals, and then 84 divided by 3 is 28 if you do that on your calculator. So we've used the proportion to say, okay, if it costs $7 for 3 pounds of meat and I buy 12 pounds, well, that's going to cost me $28, which makes sense, right? Because 12 is, if these are pounds of meat down here, so if we have pounds and then dollars, okay? If we have 12 is 4 times the amount of weight, so that makes sense that we'd pay 4 times the amount of dollars. 28 is 4 times more than 7. Okay, so if you look at another example, it says find the value of the unknown number x. Here we have x on the bottom. So again, we're still just going to cross multiply. And I'll just write it out a little bit bigger. So 9x equals 1.5 over 7. Okay, so we cross multiply. And when we do that, remember when you multiply a number times a letter, you just go 1.5 times x. And then we do it to the other side. 9 times 7, so 9 times 7. And then we know 9 times 7 is 63, and then we still have 1.5x over here. And then what we do is we have to divide by the number that's attached to x as our last step. So we divide by whatever attaches to x. So we divide, 1.5 is attached to x, so we divide by 1.5. And we have to do it on both sides, 1.5. Okay? And so that just leaves us with x over here. And 63 divided by 1.5, if you do that on your calculator, you'll get 42. Okay? So again, cross multiply, that's what we did here. Once something gets attached to x, that's what you end up dividing both sides by, and that gets rid of the 1.5, and it just leaves x on this side, and then you just 63 divided by 1.5 leaves you with 42. In another example, we have x again on the bottom, but it's over on this side. That's okay, we still just do our rules. So I'll just write it out here. 7.3 over 4.5 equals 1.2 over x. Okay, so we know the first thing we got to do is cross multiply. So 4.5 times 1.2. Doesn't matter what the order is of the numbers when you multiply them together. And then x times 7.3, so we know that x is now attached to 7.3, okay? And then when we multiply 4.5 times 1.2, that gives us 5.4, and then we still have 7.3 times x over here. Now we know we have to divide both sides by whatever is attached to x. 7.3 is attached to x, so we divide by 7.3, divide both sides by 7.3, and then when we divide these, they disappear, and we're just left with x. And then 5.4 divided by 7.3 gives us, if you do it on your calculator, 0.74. Okay? So again, it's okay to use your calculator. Just remember those steps. Cross multiply across, you get the numbers, bring the x up, attach it to x, and then divide by whatever is attached to x. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, see your instructor.